All right, guys, welcome everyone. My name is Mark Pillar. I'm the founder of Backendless. This is the very first public presentation on FlowRunner that I have done. So I apologize if it's going to look a little rough around the edges. I'm sure it's going to get more polished over time. And this is sort of our inaugural presentation since we unveiled FlowRunner just a few weeks ago. So today I wanted to give you an introduction about the product. You will get, hopefully I will provide enough information where you will get a pretty good idea of what the product is and what it can do. And we'll discuss, in fact, I do have the agenda right here. So we'll discuss the background, how we came to FlowRunner. I'll talk about the key features. There is definitely going to be a demo. We'll talk about how you can get started if you're interested in learning the product and using it. So let's people are still joining us. This presentation is recorded. We will uh, publish it to our YouTube channel once we're done. So let's just jump in. So what is FlowRunner? First of all, it is a complete automation platform. Okay. When I say complete, I mean that it goes above and beyond of what you would find in Backendless, right? So if Backendless is strictly back end and front end, the FlowRunner goes above and beyond to be able to automate anything and everything. So if you can automate processes and do the home automation with Arduino and stuff, or you can automate the entire production line if you're manufacturing, I don't know, cars. So FlowRunner as a product can do quite a bit when it comes to automation. There is a huge focus in FlowRunner that on AI. So you can shift some of the decision making in FlowRunner to artificial intelligence if you choose to do so. You don't have to do this. You could just use it as a pure automation platform. However, if you would like to rely on some of the decision making on AI, you can definitely do so. And there are built-in mechanisms in FlowRunner that would enable you to do that. And I will demonstrate how it works. There is the process control in FlowRunner is we call it natural process control, meaning that you can define processes exactly as you can think about them and in the way they work, where if there is some parallel actions need to be going on, or if one action need to wait on another, you can control all of that in FlowRunner as far as how things advance in your automations, in your processes. Okay. And we believe that FlowRunner is a natural evolution of backendless. If you think about the backendless, and I think we talk about it on the next slide. So yeah, so backendless, uh, as much as it can do, really consists of three main parts. There is backend, which includes the database, caching, user management, file storage, messaging, just everything that is happening on the server. There is front end, where you create your UIs. We have introduced a new feature called visualizations. So anything that is presented to the user. And there is an API services layer that can be used for integrations, can be used to connect backend with the front end. And the applications that people build, we noticed that quite a few of our customers build automations with backendless in one way or another, in one shape and form and the other. So if you have a UI page where user submits something and it goes to the database, and then a timer wakes up and checks the records and so on, and then performs some actions, that is an automation. So we believe that uh, in in the modern world, uh, and by the way, there is a question if webinar is recorded. Yes, it is recorded. So in the modern world, with development platforms, we see that there is a lot of happening where the actual development platforms, development systems are becoming sort of a commodity. There are so many of them, and with a no-code movement and sort of a drive to deliver something, the capabilities through no-code systems, it's really becoming a commodity because there are so many different systems that let you build apps where it's becoming commoditized. And uh, developing a system that is a commodity is just not interesting intellectually, because we can do so much more. So we thought about, what would be something that, backendless would be good, and what is it being used for? Well, automations was the answer, and we about 2 years ago started working on FlowRunner. It took quite a bit of time just because the system is pretty complex, and so now it is available. So we see it really as an evolution of backendless. Are we giving up on everything that we have? No, it is becoming a natural part of FlowRunner. So we will continue definitely supporting everything that we have. However, automations is really becoming the focus of the company, where we believe, with especially AI becoming dominant player across all industries, it is very important that it is being applied to do things that otherwise being done manually, and that will result in significant savings for businesses, for consumers, for in just getting things done in a more optimized fashion. So that's kind of the main driver for FlowRunner. Okay, so key features, things that are fairly unique to CodeRunner, or at least in the way that we have done them. As I said, AI has a very dominant position in the platform. And there are a couple of things that we do really, really well. Like one of them, for example, is called AI Router. And AI Router is where you present some data that your flow is operating on. And I will provide an example, and there will be a live demo for that as well. And you ask AI, classify it. And then when you classify it, I expect these outcomes. And then depending on the classification that comes back with AI, your flow may continue the execution based on certain classification. So for example, in the demo that we have, you get user feedback. It could be, on the service or whatever. And then you send that feedback to AI and say, classify it. Is it, what is the sentiment? Is it positive, negative, neutral, and whatnot? And then you say that these are the outcomes that I expect. And then for each outcome, you basically create a branch in your automation. So if it's positive, you're going to do certain things. If it is neutral, you're going to do some other things. And that's how you build your flow. And the flow essentially in FlowRunner is your automation, is basically all the paths that the automation is going to go through. Okay, so that's AI Router. AI Assistant, it's not a foreign concept anymore. There is a lot being done and talked about how AI assistants work. So you can basically train AI on certain data, on data formats, on the type of data they will be submitting, and you ask AI assistant to perform certain tasks, right? And that could be just massaging your data or extracting some data out of the data that you presented, generating charts, generating documents, anything that AI assistant is good at, parsing data, migrating it from one format to another. All those things are available in FlowRunner. So you can train your assistant. And then for AI assistants, we use OpenAI AI assistants. So you can train your assistant in the playground of OpenAI, and then bring it into FlowRunner and use it as just part of your flow to perform tasks. And then inside of the flow, it will look exactly just like any other action that is present in your flow. And we'll talk about actions in a moment. There is a built-in PDF generator that is now baked into Backendless itself, so you can define PDF templates and identify the areas that are sort of become like that can be substituted with the actual data. So you can say, well, images are going to go here, charts are going to here, there's going to be a table of data and so on. And then use that template in FlowRunner to say, okay, AI assistant, you will generate a chart. I will provide you sales data, and you will generate the chart of the growth and so on, and give me a link to that generated chart. And that chart will just go into PDF, and you generate PDF, and you can set it out via email. So all of that is now part of Backendless. You don't need to go to any external services to do those tasks. Once you run your flow. Once you run your automation, you can establish SLA, service level agreement, and you can say that if you provide guarantees to your customers or partners for how fast certain things should be done. Let's say for customer onboarding, you guarantee that you're going to do it within 48 hours, and then you can perform onboarding through automation, and you can say that this particular property of the customer, where the status is just new customer onboarded, and whatever happens in between will happen within 48 hours. And then FlowRunner will automatically monitor where you are in that process, and if it hasn't happened in 48 hours, it's going to be a non-compliance event that will be triggered in the monitoring. You will know about it. Or before it becomes non-compliant, you will also know about it, because you can configure and say, notify me whenever it's getting to non-compliance. Well, let's say if you provide a guarantee that an order must be shipped within 24 hours once it is received by your system. And then the entire process of shipping an order, let's say if it's governed by FlowRunner, you can establish an SLA for the order status and say that it goes from new or received to shipped within 24 hours. And once again, FlowRunner will provide that monitoring for you. Whatever makes sense in your industry, in your business, in your application, you can do that in FlowRunner as far as monitoring. There is a built-in test and debug mode. So for every single step in FlowRunner, before you turn it on, you can turn on and activate the test mode and test it out and see how that specific step in your automation works in isolation, just to make sure that it does exactly, and it works exactly how you envision it to work. And finally, and there are many others. These are kind of identified as the top key features. So finally, there is a marketplace for extensions. So FlowRunner is extremely extensible. You can extend it through extensions in the marketplace. You can create your own API services, either with code or without code, using Codeless. And then those services will become available as actions in FlowRunner. So you notice that I use the word action quite a bit. So in FlowRunner, there are four major categories of things that you can operate on. So there are actions. Those are the blocks that do something, like sending out an email, or writing a record in a database, or sending a pops-up message, for instance, or generate PDF. Those are actions. There are triggers, and triggers essentially just sit and wait till something happens. And then there are built-in triggers, like waiting when a new record is written in database, or a counter in backendless counters is updated. And then we're working on adding custom triggers as well. There are transformers that can massage data and modify them, and there are conditions. So there are four different types. So whenever you create an API service, it becomes really a custom action in FlowRunner that you can use in your automation. And you will see that in the demos that we have prepared. So these are the key features. By the way, I do have the chat window open. So if there is anything you want to ask, get a clarification, please feel free to use the chat. Periodically, I will be going back to it just to answer any questions that get accumulated. All right, let's move on. So demo. So what you see here is what we call Flow Manager. Okay, and then this is a special screen in Backendless that contains a list of your automations. By the way, this screen is being redesigned. We kind of pushed it out just because we wanted to get FlowRunner in front of you guys. This screen, the layout of it will change. There will be an update in the next a week or two, perhaps, where layout will change. The functionality will remain the same. So let's start with just something very basic, okay? And let's say it's going to be a welcome email flow. So here, what you see on your screen is a sample flow. Okay, flows, they consist of blocks, and then every block will have one or more arrows that are going out, and they really represent a transition from one step of your flow to the next. On this screen, this is Flow Editor. You have a toolbox where you have a list of all the individual things that can go into the flow. Okay, And it is as simple as dragging out and putting it right here, and then just connecting blocks together. So, and then to connect the block, you just move the mouse over, and you will get this little icon that you can connect, and the connection is established. Okay, we don't need this right here because the flow, this one is ready to go. So whenever you start with new flow, you get a blank screen, and you can just start throwing your triggers, actions, conditions, and so on onto the flow. So here there will be categories, like all the triggers are under the category of triggers. All the actions are right here, various utilities, and then custom actions that come from the marketplace. Okay. So just to demonstrate something in action, let's run this flow and just see how it works, just so we can get an idea of just the basic execution in FlowRunner. So this one starts with a trigger. So this one is a trigger called user registered. Whenever flow is running, it's basically waiting for things to occur, and this flow will wake up as soon as a new user is registered. Whenever that user is registered, this one invokes a custom action. So get user roles, it is really just an API service that sits in this very application that returns a list of all the roles associated with that specific user. Okay, so this returns a collection of all the roles. Then after that, we have this block, which is a condition, and it has the label is admin. And this condition just goes through into the parameter that it received to figure out whether it has an element that is called admin. Okay. And then if it is an admin, it sends out an email to welcome that user as an admin. Otherwise, it sends out an email to welcome that user as a regular user. Okay. Now, some basic concepts here that are important to highlight. For every single block, there are incoming parameters, and then there are outgoing values. Okay, a trigger essentially, whenever you have a trigger, the data that it receives can be referenced in the flow, and you specify how. Okay, there is a built-in assignment of how that value is going to be referenced, but you can override it. So the event that woke up this flow, whenever user registered, will be referenced as user registered data. Okay, and then in here you see that this one has the input parameter, which is the user ID, and we get this value from the event that woke up this flow. Okay, so to assign this value, you click on this icon, and what the screen that you get is called expression editor. That is super important in FlowRunner because it will be the central point that contains a listing of all the data that your flow is operating on. Notice that under block results, there is this pill that is called user registered data, and that one comes from here. So you drag it out here into this expression field. It's already there. And then, or you can just double click, you put in here and you select what value to be obtained. In this case, we got object ID. Okay, but we don't want to duplicate it because it was already there. But the mechanics of this is you go to what you already have and you can select specific property. So what's going to happen is this API service will receive this object ID from the event that woke up this flow. And this one is going to be just an API service that sits in this very application. So this guy will return a list of all the user roles that are assigned to the user that got registered. Okay. Now, in this condition, and I know that I'm kind of jumping into some more complex stuff. So the condition is going to basically check the result of this get user roles. This is the value to check. And we say it's going to be a JSON array. And the operation is we want to make sure that some elements meet the condition. The element in that array is going to be JSON object. And then here we basically say that this JSON object contains a key that is called name with a value called admin. Okay. And then if all of this is true, then an email is going to go out. Okay. So this flow just basically highlights some of the mechanics of how data is being passed through. Okay. But it's not very visual because, yeah, there is a form that I'm going to fill out, submit, and then email is going to be sent. And that is okay, but it's not very kind of visual. You can actually run this flow once we get to the section of how to get started. I'll show you how you can get to this and run this flow. So, by the way, as far as every single flow in all the sample flows, once you get this, will contain a link to read the instructions. So this is the welcome flow. You can click on this link. Documentation will open up that describes this flow in all the details. Plus, you can open the UI page. That will really kick off this flow. So you can just fill out this form, submit, and then this welcome flow will run. But let's run a flow that is actually more visual. And so this way you can get to see how something specific actually works. And for this, we're going to run a flow that is called business card data extraction with AI. This one is actually pretty cool. So what's going to happen here is, actually, let me just do it first, and then we will kind of go into the flow. So in here, there is a UI page that can be used, and this one's built with UI Builder. And in this UI page, I can take a picture, okay, of a business card. And so here I have a business card of just our business banker from Chase, and take a snapshot and then click done. So this business card is being sent to the flow, and then the flow sends it to AI, and then AI analyzes this data. Oh, actually, the flow is, I need to start this flow because it is not running. It's ready. Let me run this flow. So now it is running. And let me do this one more time. So I'm gonna take this picture of the business card. Okay, click snapshot, done. So this picture is being sent to the flow. The flow sends that image to AI with a request to parse out name, phone number, email address of the person in here, and then flow sends it back to the UI. And then so now we got all of the information that was taken from this picture back on the screen, as you can see. Okay, so this one is kind of interesting and exciting because we actually get to see the result of that flow. So now that we got to see it, let me stop this flow and take a look at how it actually works, okay? So the very first thing in that flow, it is an app logic trigger. An app logic trigger is just one of the built-in triggers, okay? And the way this works is whenever you use an app logic trigger in your UI builder, codeless blocks, or in API services for that matter, you get a special codeless block that is dynamically generated that will wake up that specific block in that specific flow. So in the UI page that I demonstrated to you, this UI page, whenever I said done, take this picture, it uploaded the picture to the server and then triggered this flow and sent a URL to the taken picture to the flow. So then the result of this trigger is going to be referenced as business card. You see reference trigger data as business card. And after that, we're going to this business card data extractor. So this guy is actually an AI assistant that was configured to take an image of a business card in the prompt that configured the AI assistant. It says that you will be given an image of a business card. These are the 4 things that I need you to extract: name, email address, phone number, address, and then send it back to me as a JSON object. Okay. By the way, in FlowRunner, whenever you go here, you can create your own AI assistants, and these are the ones that are included. Okay. To create a new AI assistant, just click this and say that this is going to be the name, enable data analyzer or search in files. You can put the prompt. If you need to add additional files to train it, so you can just upload files for the data analysis, just to give it some samples. You can configure, your model, temperature, top P, like all those parameters that come from OpenAI. And then once you create an assistant, you will get a block like this that you can just drag into the flow and start working with it by providing it input parameters. And whatever the result it's going to generate is available to the flow itself. So here we do have this AI assistant that is called business card data extractor, and we're passing the image that we got from that UI page to this assistant. Okay, and the assistant already knows what it needs to do because it was configured to do that. So the assistant will come back with a JSON that contains all those 4 parameters. Okay, And then in here, there is a condition that checks if the JSON object that it came back with has a key called error. If it doesn't, then we save the data that the AI came back with to the database. So this one is an action called save record in database. In fact, in the toolbox, if you go to actions, under data service, you have the save record in the database, and it will just save data in backendless, okay? This one is configured to save data in a table called contacts. All the data tables that you have in your application will show up in this list right here, okay? And if you go out there, create a table, and you have this tab open, just click this refresh button, and the table will show up, okay? When you select the table, you will get this uh, uh, panel here where you can select individual column, assign column values. So here you will get a drop down with all the column names, and you can specify what value to be saved in that specific column. Notice that right here, we basically get contact data, and contact data is what we got back from the AI. It is referenced as contact data, okay? So we have contact data, then the property is called decision. Decision is the system level property that contains the actual result from the AI. We know it is going to be JSON, and then the decision.address will give us the actual address. Likewise, for email, it's going to be decision.email, okay? So all of this is done, and as a result of this, the data will be saved in the contacts table. In fact, if we go to the database and look in the contacts, okay, right here, this is the data that was saved by that blog in this table, okay? So here, to continue, then after that, there is another block called send data to UI. So I'm taking this decision, which is JSON, and I'm sending it back to UI. And this block is essentially what happens in order for the data that is processed by AI to show up in the UI form. And it's simple as that. Now, notice that there are also these blocks that are called log trigger data, log AI result. And these are just basically there to demonstrate how logging could work from debugging purposes, okay? For example, to see it in action, if you open another browser window and go to logger.flowrunner.ai, you get a page like this. There is going to be a 5-digit code, okay? You copy this code, and then select any one of these log blocks, click configure, and put in this 5-digit code, and click save. And by the way, this log trigger data is available from the marketplace. And I'll show you how to operate and install things from the marketplace. Now that we have configured this log trigger data, let's actually start the flow again, and then open the UI page. Okay, and I'm going to scan some other business card. I actually have, here's some, I think it is some kind of VC. We get a lot of those. So I'm going to take a picture of this one. I'm going to snapshot, done, but then I will open this logger. This is the logger.ai, right? So as the flow is running, it is actually doing what it does, but it's also sending that data to the logger. There you go. So as you can see, it showed up right here. And then this logger.flowrunner.ai also received this information right here. Okay. Now, this information, it showed up in that logger.flowrunner.ai because we have this blocks right here. Okay. So we logged trigger data, which is right here, which is just basically URL to the image. And we also logged the result from the AI. Okay, so that's kind of logging. Now, in addition to that, there's built-in logging that is super detailed, and I'll show you how that works also in a second. Okay, let me see and demonstrate something else. AI-driven sentiment analysis flow. This one is actually pretty cool. So in here, this one will demonstrate how AI routers work. Okay, in here, this flow works with Google Forms. So the story behind the sample goes like this: user fills out a Google form, and the form is super simple for the demo purposes, where it has just like name, perhaps email address, and some kind of feedback, right? So let's hypothetically, let's say it's a product or service feedback. We get that information from here. So this trigger is going to be activated when the Google form is submitted. We save the data that we got from the form in backendless database, and then we go to another special block that is called AI router. AI router is built in. You can see it right here, AI router. And then this AI router is configured where we say, I'm going to give you data that I'm calling feedback, and it contains user feedback. Determine the sentiment of the feedback. Okay. So, and then I provide decision data. So I can just say that the data that I'm sending to you, I'm going to be calling it feedback. In fact, I'm referencing it in the prompt. Okay. And the data that I'm passing in comes from this form submitted. See, the form submitted trigger, the data that it received as a trigger is referenced in the flow as form data. Okay. So in the AI router, I'm referencing this form data feedback, and feedback is just a field in the Google form. Okay. So whatever user typed in goes to AI router. The cool thing about AI router is I can specify what decisions I expect AI to make, one of them, okay? And then here I say that it could be positive, neutral, negative. You can specify any number of decisions that make sense in your case. Here, these are the ones that I identified. For every single expected outcome, AI router gets a connector. Notice that there is positive, neutral, negative, and then there are branches that are going out. I can create another one. I can say that this one is going to be called, for example, extremely positive. Okay. And notice that there is now extremely positive connector that needs to be connected to something. In fact, there is an error that says extremely positive must be assigned. So in other words, there is an outcome that doesn't have a branch. But if you need to create your own, this is how you do it. Okay. There is also another one that is built in called everything else. And everything else is sort of like a catch-all in case if AI could not conclude that whatever the user typed in is going to be one of these. Okay. And everything else is sort of like something else. And then every one of these need to have a branch that it's going to be executing. Okay, so in case if it is positive, we're going to mark that record in a database as something that can be shared on social media because user is like very happy about it. And then we send an email to the user thanking them for very positive feedback. If it is negative, notice that this one is called actions group. An actions group is yet another construct in FlowRunner. In fact, right here, you see that there are groups, actions group and triggers group. Okay. So actions group is a special thing where you can throw a bunch of actions and they're all going to be executed in parallel. Okay. In fact, if I go inside, these two things will happen. So I'm going to log using a FlowRunner logger the fact that negative feedback was received, and I'm going to notify customer service. Okay. And that's for negative. If it is neutral, just logging. If it is everything else, just logging. Again, only for the demo purposes. To see this in action, I need to configure some things that are not configured out of the box. Okay. So for example, let's do this. I'm going to select, I already have a connection here for email. And then this one, I'm going to select my own. By the way, whenever you install these blocks that require OAuth authentication, you will get a chance to create a connection. You could have multiple connections and operate in those. By the way, there is a question whether Gmail is the only mail-based. Right now, in the published forms, yes, there is one that is also going to be published soon that provides Microsoft Entra, basically the Microsoft Outlook in the cloud integration. So that one is coming out as well. So now everything is configured. Everything looks good. So we can start this flow. Okay, so the flow has started, and this one is AI-driven analysis. And by the way, one thing that I will need to do is I'm going to copy this URL for the actual trigger, and you will see why. So here, here's the Google form that we're using. This Google form is reusable. We made it that way, just so anyone who gets sample flows do not need to rebuild this form. You can, if you want to, and the instructions are in the documentation. But if you want to use this one, you have to paste this callback URL for your application. So the Google form knows where to send the data. So here, I'm going to say, okay, I am Mark Pillar. This is my email address, mark@backendlist.com. And feedback, we're going to say, this is an amazing product, just to stimulate a positive feedback, right? So notice that the fields are feedback, email, and name. And all of these are being sent to my flow. So I'm going to submit. Okay, that has been submitted. And in here, if we go to our form, I'm sure I don't have my email screen in front of me, but an email was sent. But what we can do is we can check in the AI-driven sentiment analysis flow table if there is a record, and if it was a positive, that record would also be updated with the property shared feedback needs to be set to yes. Okay, so if we go to the database, AI-driven sentiment analysis. Okay, so this is an amazing product. It saved all of this. Notice the shared feedback is yes. Okay, and this value got into the database simply because this block was executed. Notice that flag for sharing in social media, it is save record in database that operates in the update mode. Okay, so we're updating the record that we got from saved form in DB result. Saved form in DB, that's this guy right here. See, saved form in DB, that's the reference to the result of the save operation. AI determined that it was positive, then we perform update operations. So this is a great demonstration how you can do saving and then updating of the same record in the same flow. And in addition to seeing how the AI router works. Now, something else that I want to demonstrate now that we have executed this flow at least once. If we go back to Flow Manager, there is this icon right here that is called Analyze. And by the way, what I'm about to show you in the next iteration of Flow Manager, this screen, it will be available without going to a separate screen. But for now, if we click on Analyze, this is the analytics for the execution of this specific flow, okay? And in here, we notice that the SLA is in compliance, although we have not really established any SLA rules, but since there are none, it is in compliance. All of the executions that we have started have completed. 0 errors, and there was 1 total run. In fact, if we step into the block transitions, I can maximize this window, okay? Notice that right here, we see that 100% of the executions of this one transferred to this across all runs that took place, but there was only 1. Then 100% of these transferred into AI router. And then 100% of these were positive, like 0 negative. So here, you can basically say across all executions or across specific time window of how the runs really happened in your flow. And then at the level of each individual block, you see how much time was spent in each block, which is super useful whenever your automations perform some time-sensitive operations. Or if you send an email for someone to approve, whatever, you can see how much on average they're taking as a human to respond to those requests. Okay, so this will keep track of all of that. In addition to that, if you go to instances, this will display a list of all the runs that happened. By default, the instance name is going to be just a built-in ID. However, you can personalize sort of or change the presentation of individual instances with a special block. So let me step out of this first, and then I will go back to that later. So there is a block that is called assign instance name. Okay, so right here, this assign instance name, you basically specify that this flow instance is processing order number 1, order number 2, or in this case, in fact, let me just do this. I'll connect it right here, and I will bypass. So we're going to be assigning instance name. That will be form data email. Okay, so here, let's just say it's going to be form data email. Okay, apply. So now, whenever flow runs, every single flow instance, rather than having this long UID, will be identifying itself by the email address of the person that filled out this form. So let's just do this. Let's rerun this flow and then come back to the analytics. So here, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to, let me just grab that URL. So I'm going to submit it as myself again. So something neutral, right? So click submit. All right, now it has been submitted. And let's go back to analytics and see what we have going on there. So instances. Notice that this instance has completed, and notice now that is identified by my email address. So here, in your case, if you're processing orders, if you're processing something that is truly unique for each invocation, each execution of your flow, you can give it sort of that label that will identify it in analytics this way. Okay. Now, the total time it ran was 1 second. There are no errors. This flow is completed. If we click on this, okay, we get very detailed report on how that very instance of your flow got executed. So let me demonstrate this with what we actually see. So we see that this one was executed once, well, because it is just really one instance. However, where it could be more than once, if you, let's say you have a loop, okay, and I will demonstrate, there will be one more demo after this that demonstrates a loop. So it executed once, it shows you when it started, when it finished. Same thing for this block. After that, it moved on here. After that, it moved on here. Notice that after the AI router, okay, only one is color, everything else grayed out. So everything that did not run will actually be grayed out. So for every single flow, you can see exactly the path that it took to execute and perform its invocations. In addition to that, when you click on any individual block, it will show you all the input parameters that it got and all the output parameters that it got. So in here, save data, save form data in the database, the body params, here it is. This was sent to this block. You can see actual data. And whenever it finished its execution, this was the response. So you can see the object ID that was assigned by this record. Okay. You click on AI. This is what we send to AI router. The decision was neutral. Okay. And the same thing is true for every single block that is present in FlowRunner. You can get down to the details of exactly what was going on at the instance level. In addition to that, there is logging. Okay, so very detailed logging where you can select individual instances. By the way, I see that there is a problem because I assigned instance name, although it's not showing up right here. But for every single instance, you can select and then see exactly all the logging that was generated. And then we're going to be enriching this logging information as well. So you can see from the analytics perspective, there is a lot, and I haven't even touched SLAs. Once you start assigning SLAs and all the rules, there's going to be a lot more, and you get real-time information on how well your flows are performing. So let me just do one more demo, and after that, we'll go to whatever's going to remain in this presentation. So this one is going to be chatbot. Chatbot is actually pretty cool because this is it. This is it as far as the top level, right? Basically, repeat is our loop. So, and repeat is going to be under utils right here, repeat. So this one will provide an ability to run loops. If you step inside of the repeat, this is what happens on a single iteration of your loop. And you can build loops, multiple loops inside of the flow. I don't know if you can do a loop inside of the loop, probably not. I don't remember trying that. But anyway, so in a single iteration of that repeat loop, what's going to happen is we get a message from UI. Okay, so this is app logic trigger that will be triggered by AI. The data that we get is referenced as send message from UI data. That data goes to AI chatbot, which is also one of the assistants that were configured. And in here, we basically say, hey, assistant, here's the message that you need to process. And assistant just comes back with a response that we send to UI. So as you can see, AI chatbot result decision. Decision is a system level property that is being sent back to UI. One thing that is new here that we haven't seen in other flows is there is this block handle error. And handle error is also one of the built-in blocks, handle error. Okay, by the way, there are some really, really useful blocks in the utilities where you can break out of the loop, you can impose some wait time. Transform data is humongous. Like if you look at transform data, these are all the operations that it supports for data transformations, like from one thing to another, extracting data and so on. Enormous amount of functionality just in a single transform data block. Okay. Now, but handle error is quite special and it's actually pretty cool. So handle error is right here. Whenever you have handle error, you can have multiple blocks leading to handle error. So if an error happens in this one or in this one, in that case, the execution of that flow will be directed to handle error. And handle error, if you are a developer or if you've done something with Codeless, whenever you use try catch, this is your catch, right? So that's basically where all the invocations will go to whenever there is an error. And anything that happens after this error, in this case, log, okay, is what's going to be executed by FlowRunner. In this case, we take this handle error result, okay, and we're just sending it to that FlowRunner logger, okay. But you could have more sophisticated error processing. I believe there is even a way to, let me just check. Yeah, source. Like for instance, if you want to know which one of these actually generated an error, whenever you use this handle error result in expression editor, notice that there is a property called source. And source will say, oh, this error actually we got from AI chatbot, or we got it from here. So you can have a condition here or another router to basically say that if error came from here, handle it this way or handle it that way. So that's definitely possible. So super simple flow, but let me show that flow in action. So let me start the flow. And then for AI chatbot, let's open the page. This page is built in. You can see the source of it. It's going to be right in the training app for FlowRunner. And let's start with something basic. What is the capital of Italy? Right? So we click send. This data goes to the flow. Flow sends it to the AI assistant. AI assistant generates the response and it says Rome. And then the thing that is interesting is that while the flow is running, it's in the loop, AI assistant we're using exactly the same thread, if you're familiar with OpenAI API, of AI assistant, meaning that the subsequent question that I can ask can be in the context of everything that I already discussed. I can say how many people live there, click send, and AI assistant will know what we already talked about in the context of that very flow execution. So you could have multiple instances of that flow, and they're all going to be in their own sandbox. So here I see we got the result of the population of Rome, which is pretty cool. And what I think is even cooler is that how simple this thing is. Okay. Couple other things that I want to mention. Okay. Let's just start a new flow. So whenever you start a new flow, this is what it looks like. If you want to install all the integrations that we have already published into the marketplace, click this icon, you get this, and then these are the ones that we already have built. So there is Airtable, Calendly, Gmail, Google Drive, Sheets. This is sent to the AI and Slack. We're working on many more. One thing that I want to make sure that is super clear, the ability to extend FlowRunner is open to everyone. And in fact, we believe that this will present us a very significant monetization opportunity for developers who are in our community. Because whenever you create an integration for FlowRunner, you can assign the price to it, publish to the marketplace. It will be available for everyone. Okay. And I believe that marketplace will become a core differentiator for FlowRunner, because unlike many other companies that run similar automations platform, uh, publishing something into their marketplaces is hard. And we know it because we've done ours for them. The number of amount of red tape that you have to go through is ridiculous. We're going to make it simple. We're going to make it very developer friendly. And you can build with Codeless, you can build with JS, and then publish those integrations into Marketplace. Right now, the documentation talks about it for Codeless, but we're adding documentation on building it with JS. Okay, so installing it is quite simple. Basically, click here, select what you need, install, and you're done. Now, this is generate PDF. Let me just, this one is actually pretty cool because that's something that is quite new. We still have a little bit of time. So PDF generation. This one is called daily report generation with AI. Okay. In here, this is the flow. Okay. What this does is it runs a query on a table called orders, and you can put your work clause in here. The work clause can be dynamic if you want to, because it uses again expression editor. It gets this basically JSON of all the orders, checks if the orders exist. If they exist, then it goes to AI assistant. And then notice that AI assistant, basically we just pass this JSON. So fetch orders, it has orders list. AI assistant gets this JSON. And that AI assistant is configured to generate 3 charts. Since we're talking about orders, one of the charts is going to be total number of orders broken down by salesperson, volume of orders, I think, by region, and something else. So there'll be 3 different analytical charts. Then we basically extract those charts from the response, which is the actions group. And in here, you see we basically use transform data and say, okay, from the AI data, from the AI assistant, get the files property, index 0, that's going to be orders by product. And this one is going to be amount by product. So there are 3 files that we basically extract with this one. Something that is quite interesting that is happening on this actions group. Notice that there is a property called outgoing transition mode, and it says on completion. As simple as it looks, this is extremely powerful, because in here you can say that go to the next block only after all of the actions inside of this group have completed. Okay. And that's the on completion. If I change it to on start, it will say go to the next one as soon as the first one started. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, all I'm going to do after they have started, and then this after they have completed. So yes, so that's the transition control. Then we have this generate PDF report. Okay, before we dig into this, okay, one thing that I'm going to point out that the template name is called orders daily report. So let's come back to this after we take a look at the actual PDF template. For PDF template, if you go to quick access and select PDF template editor, right now it shows up under messaging, which doesn't make sense. As soon as we do an update in the next version, this PDF template editor is going to be under front-end developer, where it really belongs. But anyway, so PDF template editor. In here, this is the template that it is using. So you can create your own templates, and when you create templates, these are sort of the blocks that you can drag onto your template. And you can have the base PDF that already has your letterhead and your logo and stuff like that. So here, what we have is we transferred in here, there are 2 pages, and then these pages have fields, and these fields are of type image. In fact, this is type image. You just transfer it here, give it a name, and notice that it says editable. Okay, so there are 3 placeholders of type image with these names assigned to it. Okay, so that's our template. Just ignore the fact that it shows these charts because this is, again, just a placeholder. Okay, now that you see where the template is, let's go back to FlowRunner and take a look at this continue daily report generation. So in here, we say generate PDF report. We select this template. We give it the file name, and notice that FlowRunner recognizes all the template variables, the placeholders that your template has in here. And you say orders by product summary. It's an image. what do you want me to display here? And we say, well, display the file that we actually got from AI. And then same for amount by product, amount by salesperson. And it breaks it down by the page. So this essentially generates a PDF that is going to be used in this flow and used specifically in the next block, which is sending report by email. Okay. So in here, I can just say, well, send it to me. Okay. And that really completes the flow. So now we can save flow. By the way, if you want to save it manually, there is save flow, or you can use autosave, which anytime you make a change, it will automatically save it. So if we start this flow, now it is running. And in here, there is an open UI page that we can say generate report. Okay, so this basically just triggers this flow. However, the reason we have this UI page is by default, this flow, okay, that I have just demonstrated to you guys, has an automatic schedule. So flows can be scheduled to run automatically. In here, you can say, well, this is how frequently it will run. This one will run daily, never expire. Or you can say, well, run every number of seconds or run weekly, whatever really works for you. So you can create flows that wake up automatically and just do those things. Now, this is the email that was and this is the PDF report. So if I click on this what was generated by AI. Notice that the actual data is in the PDF report. So that actually works exactly as it should. Okay, now how to get started, which was really the next slide. We're almost out of time. So how to get started. If you want to start learning FlowRunner, the best way to do this, if you go to create new app, select this option, okay? New app for FlowRunner training. Select this option, give it a name. You're going to get an app that looks exactly like this. So all these sample flows are going to be in here, and you can access FlowRunner by this icon. All the database tables are going to be there, all the UI pages. For every single flow, there will be this read instructions page link that goes to our documentation. And documentation is quite complete. It has a lot of stuff in here, so you can really just dig into this. Also, on our YouTube page, we started generating videos, creating videos that really go into the fairly good level of details for each of these flows. Once that is done, right now we already have 3, then there will be a training course that is published on FlowRunner, so you can just follow along and learn everything. Okay, guys, I will not take any more of your time. Thank you for joining this webinar. And until next time, happy coding, happy no coding, and happy automations.